Episode 112 of Strange Brow Radio. Thanks for joining me. My name's Tobe Johnson. You know that by now. And thank you to the patrons over at patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio and the folks at metallicmonsters.com. I'll be heading over there, I think, on June 2nd to watch Blondie get printed up. So patrons will get a first look at that. And thank you again to our sponsor, Feral by Aaron, over at Etsy. All right, we have a return guest here because, well, they had something happen, and I think it's poignant to the conversation of Sasquatch. So, more in a moment here with my special guest. We'll be right back. Well, before we begin, let me tell you, it's an interesting summer for sure. The mask mandates have now been done. But as far as I'm concerned, the masks are really coming up over the players in these interesting secret worlds that they live in. And what am I alluding to? Well, the mask of the DoD and the UAP phenomena is beginning to catch my attention. My question to you is, why is every UFO video being released by the DoD have to do with seafaring ships? Mainly battle groups. There's a lot of good UFO and UAP stuff out there from civilians that could be vetted just the same way, i.e. things scrambled after footage is captured. No talk about what happened in Arizona with the Phoenix Lights. Hints at major breakthroughs, though, as far as off-world craft. So come June 6th, whatever deadline that is, it will be interesting to go to the alien highway, the extraterrestrial highway, and be a part of that great mythos of the Nevada desert on the cusp of a major breakthrough. So, I don't know. Get ready for some live stuff that I'll be doing out in the desert. I don't have times or dates because I don't know what Wi-Fi signal we'll have, but that'll all be over at YouTube, mainly. The live shows, and then of course I'll be shooting night vision stuff. I'm putting up more night vision stuff also at the Facebook page and Instagram as well, including this one I'm uploading right now. So interesting stuff going on with the camera. Maybe able to invest in something a little more high grade by the end of the year. The new Psionics I think is coming out, so we'll see. Also for the patrons here, I'm working on another YouTube channel that has specifically to do with interesting power spots. That would be all this YouTube channel would be dedicated to. And we don't really know much more than that. I have an idea what gung-ho force is going to be in this with me. It'll probably be once a month. And we're looking for some sponsors right now to help us get things going. Camera equipment mainly. And then there will be I'll discuss the rest of the format with you down the road. Don't want to say too much because I don't really know that much. Okay, so next up we have Eira Wulfnothsson. Now I know you've just saw Eira at our conference on power spots, but what if talking about power spots activated her land? Well, she had something happen, and I caught her 24 hours afterwards. And I was surprised by the details. So make sure you listen to the very end of this because dumb old Tobe here missed the detail, an important detail that she was explaining that has to do with a cottonwood tree and a flash of black. Okay.
It happened last night.
I know. I wanted to get a hold of you last night, but you said no. All
yeah.
right. So
I was kind of slammed afterwards. I needed some time to kind of think about the different aspects of it.
Okay. Well, first of all, congratulations. I'm on the phone right now with Eira Wulfnothsson from Heart Unafraid. Thanks for calling me, Eira, after this incredible afternoon you had yesterday, the day before the new moon. Maybe that had something to do with it. But in short, you had an experience with something you can't readily explain. And I'm going to let you explain what happened. So take us from the beginning, from the first moment that the dogs, are you saying that maybe when you're out on a walk, the dog's alerted?
Yeah, I was not on a walk. I had just been on a walk. There's a lot more to this story than just what happened yesterday. I moved here January 7th, and I was seeing some things, and I'm probably not the most credible person because I've had so many experiences in different locations that, I tell a story and it's like, oh no, not another story. But I've never really been a Bigfooter researcher, or, I had an experience back in Siskiyou County, but I haven't really been like Tom Cantrell and all those people, they interact with Bigfoot and they talk about witnessing juveniles and babies being born. And it's like, that's so not, I've never had anything like that happen. I've always had very subtle things like, where did this, compass come from that was left on my doormat? Or where did this, rock, why did that happen? There's always this logical explanation. And so I recently did a conference with you about how I have found in my life when I ask a question about something spiritual or paranormal, I always get an answer. And so I decided when I got here, I was seeing some little lights in the forest, and I live on 40 acres. So there's a lot of forest here, and I have access to 180 acres that I walk and I run around on. So when I was seeing all the little lights, I thought, well, it's probably the geology, and there's underground springs all over the place. And, I still have that logical side to me, even though I study magical principles and I really am, swimming in a paranormal sea my whole life. I still have that side of my brain, that logical side that says, nope, that was a bird, or that was, there's a logical explanation for that. So I'm not really happy to be reporting this, even though it was a magnificent experience. It's just another thing for everybody to say, oh, you're batch crazy. But it happened. I saw it, think what you want. So I have been getting different throw sticks for my dogs left out. I've had a few boulders left in my driveway. I started building this little Bigfoot stick structures myself in my yard, kind of like reaching out to see what was going to happen. And I have had some, a stick left balancing on the tip of my shovel in my shed. And I've had some turkey tail mushrooms left on the ground in my shed in a little pile. And, I left an egg out and I got an identical rock that looks like an egg. I don't know how that's happening. Yeah, there's logical explanations, but, and I've had a vocalization where I was standing out by my woodshed, which is at the edge of the forest, and I got that, that big lunged strange who. So I'm really hopeful, and I was really starting to, entrain with nature. And then I sat down one night and I made a rock clack. I made a little flat stone with a little clacker, and I thought, well, I'm going to reach out here and see what happens. So I made one clack. And right to my right, it sounded like, to me, it was maybe 20 feet away. I hear a clack. And then on my left, I hear another 20 feet away. I hear clack. And so then I clack again and nothing happens. Like it just doesn't happen when you respond. And I was talking to Ron Moorhead. I said, I don't know if I'm imagining this or what. He goes, no, they didn't know you were a human. They thought you were one of them making the clack. And they responded. And I went, oh, okay, I got to study up on this stuff. So I was going out a lot into the forest, and I was asking, are you there? I can feel you. Show me what you look like. And I feel like an absolute nut when I do that, but anyway. And I was sitting at my desk. Actually, it was the dining room table. I was on my computer, and my dogs have been alerting every evening and every afternoon. And there's some big stumps outside of my window, kind of on the bank out there. I put some pictures on my Facebook page. I didn't put a title with it, but there's a big cottonwood tree. So the bank goes down, it crosses a little slider road, and then it runs into a big cottonwood tree and another cottonwood tree covered in ivy. There's 2 trees there. And then it goes down a ravine and goes down into the deeper forest. My dog started to alert previously, and I would look up and I wouldn't see anything. And I think there's no deer, there's nothing. What are they seeing? So yesterday at 1 PM, I was sitting at the dining room table on my laptop, and my dog's got that crazy thing going on, and so did the blue jays. So I have 5 blue jays that I've been feeding, and they've become like dogs. You know, they alert to me when there's an animal around or a person coming in. They'll go crazy because otherwise they're like completely silent. But they were going off, and I looked up and I saw, this is so weird. I saw something from the area of the big stump shoot straight down, big, like, 7-8 feet tall, but it was shooting through the air almost like it's on its stomach. So it was just maybe a few feet above the ground, like it had pushed off its legs and just went like straight down the bank towards the creek, towards the big cottonwood trees. It was fast, and I could, I don't know how my brain registered this, but it had maybe 5-inch long hair on the back. It was shiny, shiny black. I couldn't tell if it was oily or wet, but it was stuck to the back, and the back had huge muscles in it. I couldn't see the face. It was so fast, I couldn't really make out, for all I know, it could have been, I don't know, a whale. It could have been anything really, but it just shot down the bank, and it was long and beefy and just went whoosh, like it had pushed off its legs and was literally flying, like it must have had so much power to eject itself like that. And I immediately ran out of my sliding glass door, and I ran down there because there was no way I was going to let this one go. I was like, I'm going to get this. I ran straight down to the slider road, and there was nothing down the ravine. The ravine it went down had a little creek, and there was nothing down there. But to my right, at the cottonwood tree, that huge, huge tree, there is a blue jay with its wings spread out, face planted in the ground. One of my blue jays. They were all in that tree, right? Something, I don't know what happened, but I went over to help the blue jay and take a picture of it, and then it like fluttered and got up and flew away. So I immediately started taking pictures of the ravine and the tree, and I got this, weird energy coming off of the tree. Logically that could just be the camera or whatever, but there it is, and it's real foggy. The atmosphere is like foggy in the pictures, but that blue jay, I don't know what to say. I asked you this last night. I'm not in the whole Bigfoot, details, and I don't go to the clubs and the fan groups and the Facebook pages. So I don't know, but I could have sworn that thing went into the tree, because when I ran down there that fast, I would have seen something on the ground or going down the hill or making a noise, or I don't know, but something stunned that blue jay right out of the tree, like a energy blast or something. I don't know what to say. But when I'm out in the forest and I'm, out there, and I'm walking in that state of mind, sometimes I think I'm not seeing faces in the trees, like moss faces and bark faces. I'm seeing something actually push out of the tree, almost like it's kind of blurred, like I'm thinking, did that bump just push out and then push back in? And then I look at it and I go, oh, that looks like a face in the moss or something. So I used to hear people say they're in the trees. I didn't know they literally meant they were saying they felt they were in the tree. You know what I'm saying? I thought they meant, oh, they're in the forest. They're out there in the forest. And when you told me last night, no, people literally have seen them go into trees.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I was, I mean, I'm pretty magical and I'm pretty out there. You know, I'm open to a lot of things. But I wanted to, you know, I feel comfortable sharing this story because someday, perhaps quantum science or new science will be able to reveal that there's something to this. And if there is, my voice has now been thrown into the research pot. And if I'm just batch crazy, so be it. I'm happy batch crazy. But I saw that happen, and there's no really in my, you know, when I think about it all night long last night, and I thought about it a lot, I don't think it could have gotten past that tree unless it flew, and I've never heard reports of Bigfoot flying.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting about this is knowing just how steeped you are into other strange stories that surpass this one, really. It's
no, I know. That's
it's a
why
pleasure.
I'm like...
It's a pleasure to sit back and hear you kind of gobsmacked at what happened to you, even though it was fleeting.
Yeah, I mean, every time something happens, I think some of us do perceive other realities. I'm comfortable with that. You know, I get it going in. Some people are just naturally in that state of being. But every time it happens to me, Toby, I am still a person that says, did that really just happen? I still question it always. And I even have, you know, alternative principles and laws that I've studied that tell me, no, this really happens. This is a real thing. But I still have that left side of my brain. You know, I try to use both my intuition and my logic. And so my logic sometimes says, no, that didn't happen. That's impossible. But then I've seen things in my life that I know it's entirely possible. Anything could happen, I guess. But yeah, to see it that close and to see it happen in a way that it's like right in your face like that, where you're not, you know, I don't go out and look for Bigfoot. I never have. But I would like to have those experiences if they presented themselves. And that's why I think I went out and I said, hey, you know, I know you're out there. I can't see you. I really want to see what you look like. And then some weird, bizarre thing happens like that. So,
well, I mean,
I don't know what to
you're
say.
in a known hot spot. I mean, the most I'll say is that you're not too far away from Mount Rainier. And, you know, there's a Bigfoot group out there this weekend, at least 20 or 30 people right now doing a whole camp out expedition, you know, exercise for good reason, because you're in such a well-known hot spot. But, you know, you're not the kind of person that really goes out looking for stuff because it comes to you. So are you really surprised that you're having action at this point?
Well, yeah, in a way I am, because I think I'll always be surprised. Like I said, you know, I swam in ceremonial magic and shamanism and all these different things. And I've had experiences in Siskiyou County that were like mind-boggling. But I didn't think I would have it here. I just didn't expect it. I mean, how fortunate and how odd and how synchronistic. I mean, it's just too convenient. I remember when you asked me, do you think you're in a hot spot? You must have asked me that a million times, and I'd be kind of like, oh, I don't know. Some maybe. But now I don't know if Bigfoot requires a hot spot. It's different. It's just so beautiful, and there's so many trees, and nature is so amazing here, and everything's blooming, and I just go out and I'm automatically in that state of mind. So I'm not surprised that stuff's starting to happen now, but it didn't happen when I first got here. I mean, I had those little lights, and I had some sticks and some stuff and a little hoo and a rock clack or two. But when it really started happening for me here is when I started picking up garbage that the loggers would leave, or I started feeding the birds, or I would do something for nature, because people would come to my house and leave shiny agates and, those polished colored rocks that everybody had, crystals and stuff. And they'd leave them out and nothing would ever happen with them, and it's like leaving a donut out or something, an animal comes and takes a bite out of it, but nobody really has any evidence of donut consumption. But for me, when I started picking up the garbage and, I'd find a little tree struggling under the berry vines or something, I was just doing my thing, but that's really when it started, ramping up for me. And I also had a little activity after I started building those little stick structures that you told me about. And I said, well, I'm going to do that on my ranch and see what happens. And what I learned, I mentioned this in the conference, what I learned was I felt like I was doing Chinese feng shui. I felt like I was leaning those branches up against the tree in that teepee structure. It's like the energy of the telluric currents would just run right up the tree, or the little asterisks, the little teepee things that you make. It's like a little swirl of energy or something. I thought, wow, that's like forest gardening, like energy gardening or something. But I don't know if they're an entirely flesh and blood being. I can't really jump on board with that after what I've experienced, but who am I?
Well, let's go back to your email here. I'm looking over it now. And you say the word liquid movement. And that's something that I've heard time and time again, including from Aaron. Most of the more complex sightings talk about the lack of there being what appears to be physical anatomy, as though something is moving in as a spirit more than it is anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, it moves like that. I mean, it was like black and I don't know, it's like you're looking through time and space or something, or it's moving weirdly through time and space. At first I thought it was on its stomach, but when I walk down there and I think about it and I look at it, it's like it pushed off like a superhero or something, and it just went,
yeah.
And it almost felt like it was elongated, but I can't, your brain does weird things when you see something like that too. So I have to be really careful that I keep it real.
Are you saying it moved like a flash of beauty?
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I would have had this experience before Brett and Jill and Mike came, because I would have shared it. But, at the time, I didn't even think I mentioned Bigfoot in their interview. It was like just talking about something
Well, it's
else.
interesting timing, because you just got done kind of wrapping up this documentary here with this film crew that's been following us around for the last year or so. And you heard me talk about it, Flash of Beauty. So they just literally left your house like a couple of days prior to that, didn't they?
Yeah. And, I'm looking at my journal right now because I didn't want to forget to say some things. But when I first got here, there was a tree. It didn't fall. It was carried and placed across a pathway. And I had walked up and down that dead end pathway a few times when I first got here, looking at my property and what's this pathway. And suddenly there's like a tree that just gets bumped there, and it has moss and dirt on it, like it had been laying on the forest floor, but it was just overnight, it was there. And it was too big for me to pick up. In fact, a friend of mine who's a retired logger, he owned a logging business, he came down and brought me some wood, and he was going to cut up that tree for me and move it. And I asked him, I said, where did this tree fall from? And he looked all around everywhere. He goes, I have no idea. It came from somewhere else, and something put it down there. And then I asked my neighbor, Mark, about it previously. I said, can you see where this tree broke off, where it came from? He looked around. No, can't see anything. I'm like thinking, oh my God, where did this tree come from? Well, the tip of it was javelined into the ground with a couple of little tiny branches, like left in like lines, like a couple of lines there, like those glyphs. But I
Now,
later
I
found
love
out.
I love how you say glyphs with a little contempt, and I understand I understand the
Well, I get,
frustration with it, but you're gonna have to get used to it now.
I know that's my intellectual side. But at the end of that path that it was blocking, I thought I had heard like little kit noises, like a fox kit or something. And I thought, well, maybe there's, baby animals down there, but it was January. Well, I found out what's at the end of that path. There's a burial down there that I have been walking over back and forth, and it was a beloved dog. And the rock looks so natural. I thought it was just part of the forest, but when I looked closely at it, it says Rusty. So there was something about don't go down here and keep walking over this dog's grave. Maybe. I mean, logic. I don't know.
Now, this is the spot you showed me where people are leaving shiny things.
What? Yes.
Gotcha.
I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it might be the same place.
Yeah. Over by
But
the outhouse is over there in the corner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was kind of subtle stuff that I could go, well, there's probably I could talk myself out of it. But it's just kind of ramped up where I'm unable to talk myself out of it anymore. And my dog, I have 3 dogs, as you know, but I'll say it for the people. I have a 130-pound pit bull, and I have a 1-year-old little female pit bull, and then I have a very ancient white Staffy. She's about a 60-pound dog. She's white, and she has a black mask, and she's all gray in the face. And when she walks now, she's so old, she just shuffles. But she'll go to the edge of the ravine where the activity seems to emerge from, and she'll stand at the edge, and I'll lose her sometimes around the house, and I'll go, oh, she's standing at the edge again. And she's looking out into the ravine, and her tail's just wagging, just in that gentle way. Like she's looking at something, just standing there wagging her tail on the edge of the ravine where the clacking happened, where the whoop happened. And when Sean and Lisa were here, we were at my fire pit outside that night, and Sean kept catching glimpses of something poking its head up over where my dog stands and wags her tail.
Okay, since Sean isn't here, and he texted me, you had some company here, more extended experiencers from Cottage Grove. Go ahead and tell Sean and Lisa's story.
I'm not sure I can say what happened to Lisa, but I witnessed it. So we went down on the 100 acres, and we walked all the way down to the edge of the forest where where the wild forest begins, because it had been logged years ago. So there's like a very young landscape there, but it's all regrown up. But we went down to where the trees, the edge of the forest, where you can walk into the forest and then it's just fern on the ground. And we walked in under a big X, which I had walked past a million times and never even saw it. So we went under the X, and as we walked under the X, they both said, do you feel that? Do you hear that? And they were getting that electrical charge buzz thing, that.
Right.
So we went into the forest.
The buzzy feeling, I think, is what a lot of people describe it, but go ahead.
It's like a vibration in the air type thing. And we walked into the forest, and Lisa just kept going down deeper and deeper and deeper. And I had one dog with me. I had my young pit. And she was, just nosing around, nothing big, not sensing anything, because she picks up on what I think is Sasquatch. She's not, she gets pretty riled up. But somebody said, do a tree knock. And I felt like, man, tree knock. So I decided I would pull the bark off the tree, and I would drum on the tree. So I did like one of the sacred sets of drumming. Da, 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 da. And as I was doing that, all I don't know how many owls started hooting, and they were like big hoots, and we all 3 heard it. I think Sean got a pretty good recording of the hoots. There was some whistling. There was another drumming in tandem with what I was doing on the tree. Somebody else started drumming on a tree. Lisa had like a inner experience. I think she felt like there was some sort of inner consciousness interaction with her. It was like emotions. It was very emotional for her. And so I really can't speak to what was going on in her life at the time. I should let her tell that story. So I really can't give you the full background of that. But she came out of there with tears in her eyes. And it was like very profound for them. The owls were like, I don't know, it was weird. I mean, I can't, sure, there's owls in the forest, but it was like a big major owl party in the forest, and they just got closer and closer.
And you initiated
the next day
by drumming the trees.
Well, I think, these things are in the trees. I don't know if they were happy with it or not happy with it, but the next day, Doug Charters stopped by my home. Lisa and Sean were still here, and we walked down to the other 80-acre side and went into a forest that had been, the beginning of it had just been logged. So I've got logging going on two sides of me right now. But they stop, and then they end up opening a pristine forest that no one's been in. And the odd thing is about that site was, when we walked in, we noticed that, like, there shouldn't have been a trail that was very wide in there, but it was a wide, smooth trail. There were no elk scratches going up the cliff or the hill. There were no elk tracks at all. And this is a damp place that we're in, and I would expect to see some evidence of elk or deer, but it was smooth, like something with pads. Now, maybe bear, I guess, but maybe not. And you picked up the vibe there for sure. And when we left, we had to climb a hill with a bunch of slag on it, right? So we were all walking pretty far apart, sort of bushwhacking our own pathway back out. And the dog was struggling, and, we were quite a ways apart from one another. And I kept hearing whistling coming out of the forest. So by the time we got up to the top and we're out, I said, "Were you guys whistling?" "No." "Did you whistle?" "No." "Did you hear the whistling?" Doug Charter says, "Yeah, I was hearing whistling too," coming out of the forest. So there's that. So then the next day, Harvey stops by. And he's here. And I take him down to the forest that Lisa and Sean and I went into with the X. And of course, we didn't really pick up anything. We had zero activity, but we walked maybe a mile, I want to say, into that forest on a perfect, beautiful path. Like, there shouldn't have been a path there. It should have been like scruffy and, elk or deer. But it was smooth like the other one, like perfectly 3, 4, 5 feet across in some places, like a park path. Now, I know who owns that property. I know who lives here. Nobody goes down there. And you would see even human tracks, because I could see my own tracks when I came back up and out, and I could see Harvey's tracks. So deep down into that forest, there's a creek. We didn't make it to the creek, but when I came back and looked at the map, there's a good sized creek down there. There's a pond down there. And it's like a canopy clear wonderland down there. I mean, it's like if you go scuba diving and you see the fish swim past you, and it's like a flock of birds, and the sandy bottoms below you. I mean, it's like going into another realm completely out of our element. It's really mystical in there.
Continue.
I don't know what to tell you. Let me look at my journal.
Well, yeah, no, I wanted to see if there was a moment that happened in this magical.
Not No, there was no moment that day. The next day, it was like nothing was there. There were no owls. There was one thing. When we were coming back out, when you go into a forest like that about a mile, you lose your sense of direction, right? And I remember when we were going in, I said, I hope you're dropping breadcrumbs because I'm not paying attention to where I am. And so this path is really well worn, but at times it's got, forest floor cover or something. And when you're looking straight ahead, the only way you really keep track is if you look down. But if you're looking straight ahead, it's easy to go the wrong direction and you think you're going the right direction. But what I started to notice was at every turn of the path, there was a tree that was not big, but a small tree that was broken off and with about 4 feet left standing up. So each time I started to feel lost, I'd look for the broken tree and there was the path, which is normally hidden because there's, ferns and stuff around. So when you're looking out across the underforest, you may not see the path, but if you stand on the path, then there's that smooth, perfect path. But sometimes it's hard, you step off and look at a tree trunk or whatever. So when we were coming back out, I would look ahead for the broken tree and there was a path. It was like, that's the trail marker. People don't break trees off to mark a path. Granted, they look like they were dead trees that were broken off. I never saw a perfect living tree broken off.
Okay, given the details that we've gone over here, you show all the telltale signs that you have some kind of precursor of interaction going on here. What do you plan to do with it? Do you have interest in getting to know your new neighbors?
Well, yeah, for sure. I'd like to take it in my own way. I don't want to start leaving bacon out and stuff like people do. I mean, I'm not into that aspect of it. And I certainly don't want to be picking up scat or hair or, waiting for DNA results or something. But I would like to privately have my own interactions. And if someone wants to come and visit and, see what happens, I would love to share that with other people in a private way. But I don't want to find myself in the middle of some Facebook group, saying, no, I saw what I saw. I don't even want to get into it. It's just such a beautiful experience to have that the human element always ruins it.
It does. And then, I just got done posting in regards to extended experiencers, which you probably are, being the mainstay of people that have interaction here, that generally they don't share the stuff that's happening to them. They're rather private and reserved about it. So most people don't know just how popular something like this is because of the nature of, what happens if you start sharing stuff. So
yeah, what I share, Toby? I don't, I share because I know someday research and science, new science, will be able to tell us for sure what we're experiencing when it's on the edge of the spiritual aspect of it. I know someday. So the internet is forever. And if I add my voice as logically as I can for such a crazy experience for most people, someday they'll either say you're batsh crazy or they'll say, hey, yeah. So there's a pattern. So if other people have experienced the same thing that I've experienced, I've just thrown my bit into the hat, and that'll start to emerge as a pattern that's happening. If everybody sees these beings merge with trees, then that's a good piece of information to have. If it's just 5 or 6 of us for all of eternity, then we know, well, they're just in an altered state, or they misidentified some movement or something. To me, I don't care, but I care about the future researchers and other people that will someday want to have this information. So I'm just telling it like it happened.
Yeah, with the trees, it's interesting because you hear people discuss the sneakiness of their behavior and how they interact, and they assume that because they are so limber that they do things really low, or they are nimble enough to climb up vertically without hugging the tree. You get into all sorts of exotic behavior. But then when you talk to someone like you, or people go back into the archives and listen to, I believe, the episode Into the Trees, quite literally, people are describing seeing, full on powerful flashlights, Sasquatch moving into the trees. And there's plenty of lore to go back and look at something like a dryad. And someone sent me a post today about knocking 3 times on wood in order to initiate, visits from the land spirit. So, in fact, I heard an incredible, I don't know if this is true because it came from David Wilcox, but he was saying that there's some study out right now that gravity acts different inside the actual cellular structure of a tree. And I don't know how that's measured or how he got that, but that's an interesting thing to look at.
Hey, there's a lot of interesting things, even, with new science, that some of our old fogey researchers haven't even heard of yet. But that's why I just want to tell it like it is as I experience it. And I think we talked about it in the conference, that what if there is something that is more spirit than matter? It would, if you want to imagine that, which I believe exists from my own experiences, it would move strangely and it would be able to merge with other matter. And if you look at the mythology of elementals, they have to stay within their element. So undines have to stay within water, salamanders have to stay within fire. So elementals have to stay within the natural world, the forest, the plants, the rocks. And I think maybe, this is just speculation, but maybe there are laws of, like our laws of physics, maybe these beings, because of how they're composed, there is a law that they can't be manifested for very long. And that's why we don't, sit down and have coffee with them. Maybe they can only manifest into matter for a certain period of time, and then that energy dissipates and they can't. They go back into, spiritual composition. Or maybe they have to go from tree to tree. Who knows?
I say get ready to be surprised by Joy and the fact that you're into the mystery schools and into the adrenaline part of this as well. It's a good fit, and I'm happy that you're there. Of course, I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again to anybody that wants to get to know more about the behavior and the interaction of Sasquatch and the particular types that are around your area. It's always to leave out a recorder. So whatever is happening here with audio equipment.
There is a game camera up on the 100 acres that Mark just put up.
See, now that would be different than leaving out audio equipment, because there seems to be this permission slip between video and audio.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, okay. See, now, why would we? I wouldn't be surprised if someone had some really strange stuff show up on that game cam, or it got taken apart and, set down, camera lens facing the fourth floor. But as with recorders, they seem to play with them, touch them, vocalize near them. And it's a way, it seems to be a way for you to understand how close they're coming in and language. I mean, if we can get anything from the Sierra sounds, it's the fact that you can begin to actually hear more than just communication of whoops and hollers. You can start to hear language.
So I feel really comfortable having this conversation about what happened, let's say with, a magical community, an order. I could go and say, hey, this manifested. And of course, they'd all analyze it and say, why? But in the Bigfoot community, there's a good percentage that are very grounded in science. And I always feel uncomfortable stepping on the toes of those who have really swam in the research area. So coming out and speaking as I do, I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers. You know, I respect everyone's opinion and experiences, but that's why I'm just a little bit holding back. If I, you know, shared, when you do ceremonial magic, things happen and manifest that, you know, again, I have a million stories where I've done work on people and things have manifested on the floor in front of me. But I completely believe that there is a spiritual realm, as you know. But it's hard for me to throw salt on, you know, the war that's happening within the Bigfoot community.
Oh, just
So
ignore that.
I don't want to get it.
Yeah, bypass all the baloney and just go for the real dollar bill. I mean, now that you've seen one, and it sounds like you have from, you know, you going over this in your mind, going through the precursor of activities.
It's not the first one.
And,
you know, I had the experience in Siskiyou, but I kept telling myself, well, you're in an altered state. And, you know, it was like, you're hot, you're tired, you just want to go home. That experience, you know, where my dogs we're hot, we're tired, we just want to go home. And it was like, I didn't remember seeing a Bigfoot for 2 days. My mind was completely wiped until someone brought it up, Bigfoot to me. And then I was like, oh my effing God. So it was fast. It was holding still. And I never thought I would have that experience again. This was like, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I was so discombobulated. And I shouldn't be because of my other experiences. Right. But when you hear everybody arguing about Bigfoot, it's flesh and blood, we're certain of it, it's a Homo sapien, whatever, Neanderthal, I don't know. I never paid enough attention to get all the terminology right. But now I live in the forest, and here I am. So I better figure it out.
better. So things
because
go ahead.
I'm totally tripping out here. I mean, the forest here is amazing. It is, you can just feel it, that there is something there that knows you're there when you're out there.
The things that you may want to be prepared for are things that you've heard from us, including slaps on the house or what sounds like popping or clicking sounds around you. Generally things going missing or being misplaced or moved elsewhere.
Well, I had that in Bear Creek with my 90-year-old mother used to tell me, she'd call out to me upstairs, there's somebody moving the planters around on the deck. Bear Creek, you know, that's the Columbia Gorge. And something would move the potted plants all over the porch all night. I heard them, she heard them, but they didn't move. They weigh like a ton. They're huge.
Right. So. And maybe these ones know that behavior. So you may see that again because what one knows, they seem to all know, or at least they know individuals. And then of course the chalky white substance, which people have been passing off as being powder or dirt.
And there's something about masks, Toby. Mm-hmm. So I keep seeing these naturally formed masks in my photographs. They look like masks made out of wood and moss on a tree. And I'll take just random photographs and I'll go, what the hell is that? You know how people get blob squatches, or I get dogs in my pictures, it's leaves and light, etc. When I go back and look at the tree that I photographed, sure enough, it looks like a mask on the tree. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned this to Marcia Moore the other night on the phone. We were having a conversation and I said, I see these masks and then I see almost like the face protrudes out of the tree and then protrudes back in. And she goes, oh my God, I always make everything with a mask on it when I'm out in nature in my sketches. It just comes to me. Well, I had an experience with Kirk actually in Bear Creek. He goes, okay, you're studying shamanism, all this, now vision quest out and tell me what you see in the forest. And we were just goofing around and I said, okay, I'll do that. And I closed my eyes and went into an altered state. What am I seeing in the forest? The first thing I see is like a kabuki mask, right? It's wooden. It looks like something you make in your wood shop with your wood watchers. And I tell him, so Lisa's came and had that experience here, and she goes, I have these dreams about Bigfoot, but he's wearing a kabuki mask. I'm like, what? Did you just say that?
Wow.
Yeah, it's like these weird synchronicities, these patterns that just happen. They're nonsensical and they don't make sense, but what is going on? I don't know.
That does kind of make sense, because after everything we've been through, there seems to be an appreciation for these timelines that intersect at the right moment. And you saying she had a profound experience out at your property, and she's having the same kind of visions as you. I mean, I know how this may sound to some of the audience, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the people that are jiving with this. This gets pretty strange, and you gotta go with it.
It's ridiculous. It really is when I hear myself telling stories, but I'm going to tell them, and I'm going to have some courage. And like I said, I'm either happily batch crazy, or someday something is going to be understood that this is important information to add to the research body. I don't know.
But for God's sakes,
too old to worry about it now.
For God's sakes, don't call her. Right. What else I was going to say to you?
Well, I put up your map that you gave me on my tree, right about the same time. So all of this is cumulative. I was picking up garbage. I was feeding the birds. I was, helping the baby trees. And I put the Bigfoot mask up. When I first moved in, I could have been just not that interesting to a creature such as this. But I think now I am.
Well, there may be something to where you put up an effigy of them and they take that as an invitation. That's something that we were thinking about in Cottage Grove. Most of these witnesses that you have at your property are all collectors of Bigfoot mask or Bigfoot anything, and so you've had all of this.
They have open minds and open hearts, and they're just out to love the experience in nature, and they're just very humble, kind, every single one of them.
Well, the last thing I was going to ask you here too is a new question here, and it comes by way of Brett Eichenberger, who sent me a copy from the Idaho paper, believe it or not, a little clipping here from somebody that was looking over some of the research of extended experiencers. And one of the common threads, according to this researcher, was possibly near-death experiences. So I was going to ask you, how many near-death experiences, because I know you've had probably at least one, but have you had a near-death experience?
Yeah, I have. I had one at 16.
Okay.
Yeah, I was out of my body. I had a terrible car accident at 16. Yep.
And I don't think I knew that. I don't think we've talked about that.
I think the only person I shared that with was Kirk. I don't really put a lot of stock into it because I'm 62 and that was when I was 16. So it's like kind of far out of my memory. I've had so many, I've asked for it. The things I've studied for years, I've just had too much of an education between, the classical 4 years of core shamanism and then 2 years of alchemy, International Alchemy Guild. And then I had ceremonial magic and belonged to an order and practiced high magic every day. So I've asked for it. I've asked to understand it. I attend the Institute for Hermetic Studies, and I attend 2 other mystery schools. And so I'm really trying to understand it from the old science, which is really pretty close to new science, what we call quantum science. It's just simplified.
But if you've actually taken a journey via near-death experience beyond all of the schooling that you've had, I mean, now you've
how do you
at age 16.
How do you, you do it in Rosicrucianism, working the paths. You have what would be a near-death experience when you're initiating. So there are rituals.
Right, but don't you think because of the fact that these were things that you didn't initiate, i.e. the near-death experience being outside of the id or the ego, it was a moment where the other side reached you without you initiating it, wouldn't you think that
I
would?
think the other side does reach down or down
Mhm.
in vibration to us. And I think we meet them halfway often. One or the other, either rises or lowers in, let's call it frequency or vibration. That's a whole nother conversation, but just for the sake of understanding in a casual conversation, I have heard, Mircea Eliade would say, the spirits need us as much as we need them for the experience to manifest, to be able to have an interaction with. So it takes two. Now, maybe by accident, the spiritual being lowers in vibration and you raise in vibration. I don't know. Who knows? Nobody.
Right.
But just from experience and observation, when I'm working to be in an altered state, or I'm walking out in nature in a place that I know is going to put, you can go into an altered state just by looking at the reflection on an ocean or on a lake, or looking at the leaves of the trees moving. That can put you into an altered state. So just being out in nature itself will put you into some level of altered consciousness.
Right.
And
I
when
guess
you're
what I'm saying
in
is
that
that
altered,
these near-death experiences, though, aren't initiated by you. They're part of your path. You didn't elect the path to happen. You didn't initiate it. So maybe there's a difference with these maybe there's a commonality. I mean, I have never asked anybody, extended experience or otherwise, about having a near-death experiencer, but going through the list of people in my life right now that have had extended experiencer stuff, I can think of at least 3 that have had near-death experiences.
And if you're talking about who I think you're talking about, we're all RH negatives too. There's another
You're
pattern.
right. Yeah. Well, all 3 of you are. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, if this was merely a physical being, this wouldn't matter. But if we're looking at something that can take form, physical to non-physical, maybe this is part of the equation we should start asking about.
Yeah, I wish I was a quantum physicist and I could actually spew out a few things that would make sense to try and explain it, but I'm not. So that's why we have to leave it to people that, to give the scientific explanation. I don't think that's going to come for a very long time, but we continue to document our experiences, and we continue to have them, and we try to repeat them and instigate them and initiate them, and it's all good. If people get upset with that, then that's their problem.
I can tell how jazzed you are about this moment here, and it was
great. Pretty bizarre. I was just on my laptop doing Facebook probably. I mean, that's, I just sit down and I turn on my computer and I see what Aaron's doing and what Christine's doing and what Carrie's doing, and I just sit here going, da-da-da, because the rest of the time I'm out hiking or I'm out in the forest digging around doing something. And I had just come in and sat down, and that's when the dogs and the blue jays went crazy. Another thing that I want to add is when we went through the X, Lisa Faye and Sean Faye and I, when we came out after having that whole concert happen to us in the forest, the 5 blue jays that follow me, because I feed them, they follow me wherever I go now, they were going crazy outside of the forest. They were all cacking at something. So there's something physical there. Something was physical nearby. Was it a cougar? Probably not, but it could have been. But to me, when they start going crazy at my house, I always kind of perk up thinking, okay, somebody's manifesting out there, or somebody's in the forest out there, because the blue jays don't do that to me. Or if someone's with me, they don't do it. So between my dogs and my pack of blue jay dogs, I kind of know what's going on.
And plus, it looks like you were out at night too, right? You had a fire that evening, the night before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do walk at night. Mm-hmm. It's my own property, so I'm not afraid. I mean, I carry a 9mm when I go in the forest. I'm not a, idiot, because if something attacked my dogs or I needed to warn off a bigger animal, I could.
Sure.
But I go out on my own property at night, every night,
including tonight.
Yeah.
On a new moon. It should
Yeah.
be well,
yeah,
the possibilities
and it's so
are there.
right.
I would love to set you up with a way for you to lay in bed and listen to the sounds that happen that you're not hearing, because chances are you're missing probably a great many things in the wee hours that are very subtle, including these clicking or tapping sounds.
I think you're right. I think that's true. I do sit in my window. I don't have TV. So I go into my room at night. I put the dogs on the bed, and I will sit in my window with the window open and look out into the forest. And I watch the stars. And I always like to see if, something flies by in the sky. So I watch Orion pass over and then set. And I have my window open every night. And if something's going to come, walking underneath me, I'm on the second floor. So I'm always looking out there at night, and I would love to know what's going on that I'm not seeing.
Continued. I know that Erin will be coming by your place here fairly soon, so she'll get a full debrief of where everything happened, and we're on our way down to the ET highway, so we're packing up here over the next week, getting ready to take off for a week. But exciting stuff. I'm glad that we talked. At least we're about 24 hours outside of your sighting, and it's only the beginning, so I'm sure there'll be more to come. Maybe a couple.
The weirdest part to me was a stunned blue jay. Whatever came down that hill, if it did go into that tree, the level of energy that hit that tree, that blue jay fell right out of the tree. That was one of my 5 blue jays. Because the other one.
Hold on a second. Maybe I misunderstood this. It fell out of the tree?
Yes. Face down, wings out.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So I thought when you said stunned, I thought you meant like it just sat there.
No, it fell face down. And when I got up to it, the wings were out and it was face down. The other 4 blue jays were going crazy, jumping. There's a little skinny redwood right next to that tree. I don't know which cottonwood it went into. They're very close together. But the blue jay just fell out of the tree. It was stunned. It was zapped or something. Now, my feeling is if I'm a Bigfoot and I'm the dude of the forest and I'm into, being one with nature, I would feel pretty bad if I stunned a blue jay. So whatever it was zipping past, or it slammed in energetically into that tree. And
it may
when
or
I
may
took
not.
pictures of,
when
I took pictures of the tree, it was like a fog around it. None of the pictures came out. The 2 that came out were like fogged, and there's like this little rainbow energy streak in it. Like I took the pictures probably a minute and a half after it happened.
Yeah, I think there is a certain level of bush law allowed between how things happen in the forest, and if a bird's in the wrong spot, or a rabbit, or a snake, or whatever, it's fair game. So it was. That's really incredible. That speaks to the story a lot more than I originally heard.
That is what I want known. That is like the weirdest little detail that kind of says it all to me.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like I just see something streaking past. There is this weird event, and I thought
damage.
At first I thought, how did it get down that ravine? It couldn't have, it just couldn't have going back down into the deep forest. And then I thought, holy shit, and then, put 2 and 2 together. It took me a minute to process the bird plus the tree plus the thing.
Yeah. And so can you see this cottonwood tree from your balcony?
I'm standing right at my dining room table right now looking at it.
Okay.
And I've had something hiding behind those stumps, I think, whether it be Bigfoot, a deer, a bear. None of those things hide behind stumps except Bigfoot. But anyway, I can see the stumps at night, and that's where Sophie will just every now and then she just gets crazy. And I go and I look for the deer, or I look for a cat, or I look for whatever. And there's never anything out there that I can see. So she's perceiving something I'm not perceiving. Amazing. She did it today. On the walk, I went down to the 100 acres and we just took a little short walk. And she stopped and she was looking at something right in front of us that I couldn't see a thing, but she was alerting and her hair goes up. She's kind of a mean little dog. You know, she's not as kind as Horace and Arwen. She's a pandemic dog.
Interesting. And you're no stranger to the mystery of this stuff called Aramis or rubidium, and looking into the idea that cloaking is possibility.
Yeah, I think that cloaking is a real possibility. I think you can influence your environment or the people that would perceive you with your consciousness says, do not see me. And you can walk past them and they just don't see you. It's not that you disappeared. Their consciousness interprets you as just part of the landscape.
Right. Boy, there's a lot of areas we can go to after that. We'll schedule this for the next round. Again, my guest is Eira Wulfnothsson, the website Heart Unafraid, and don't forget to check her powerful, I would say life-changing talk that she gave on Power Spots only a couple weeks ago. You can catch it over at the Strange Brow Radio live events tab. We also did it over at the Strange Brow Radio Facebook page. So it is still up there forever at the end of time. Thank you again, Eira, and we will be in touch.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor.
There you have it, Into a Cottonwood Tree. Now, the only thing I would have suggested, and I'll send this episode off to Eira or call her up, is looking for residual alba vernix, the new coined term to describe this oily, chalky white substance. Now, there's going to be a lot more to come on this, especially in the coming weeks and months. There'll be conferences specifically on collection data. I know that Doug Hychek and Shelley Montana are out promoting their work on alba vernix. This may be a residual psychic energy, residual compound left behind after a moment like this. I don't know. It sounds out there, but it's an out there subject. So if you ever hear something or see something, go check it for a residual psychic energy. And check out the quote I put on Facebook by Dan Aykroyd regarding this very topic as well. Very interesting. In fact, we may get more into Dan Aykroyd's family lineage. Okay, if you want to help out the show, you're already doing it at a Patreon, but you can do it more over at Strange Brow Radio in the merchandise section over at Teespring. Go get yourself some lovely Strange Brow gear over at Teespring. Why don't you? And thank you again to our sponsors, Metallic Monsters. Like I said, I'll be heading out that way sometime around June 2nd, and then I'll be fresh back from the ET Highway. And then I'm headed down to Oregon for a bit as well. So it's getting busy. Conferences coming up at the end of July in Longview. If you haven't been to Longview to their Squatch Fest, as long as everything keeps working on the way it is as far as loosen up the regs with COVID, these conferences will be coming back. So that one's coming, and then we got the one in Wolf Creek. That's enough for me. And of course, quite literally, I will see you in the trees.